and recording in progress. And then this is a little like touchy-feely, but what is your favorite thing about your personality? So I'm going to put that in the chat. I will go first because it's my icebreaker and I'll give you more time to think. My name's Aubrey and I'm a copywriter. And my favorite thing about my personality is I'm very smiley. I smile at people. I smile at strangers. I smile at people I know. I smile at people I've never met before and they think that maybe we know each other, but we don't. I'm smiley. So you guys can just popcorn off, whoever wants to go next.
Popcorn off.
I think David goes next.
Next. I'm Terry. I'm AAF Nebraska's executive director. And I guess I would like to think that my personality trait is that I am grateful and tell people that I am grateful for what they do because I work with volunteers and I hope that that's a good personality trait that I have.
You totally do, Terry. You're very.
There you go.
Yes.
If I had to say mine, I think it's that maybe I'm not as much of an asshole as I think I am. So that's it. Yeah, see? There you go. And I'm David. I'm a creative director with Kingswood and Palmerston here.
I can go. I'm Mike Taylor, copywriter at TRG in Dallas. And even though I'm in Texas and I grew up in West Virginia, I think I'm just a classic Midwest nice kind of person. So I think that's probably my favorite personality trait of myself. Just classic optimist, being nice to everybody. I do say ope as well. So I guess I am Midwestern to some degree. So
love it.
Does Stan know you're doing this in the office?
I'm at home and he's long gone.
Okay.
I never know if people know what happened. But yeah, Stan.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's
gone.
right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. No,
I
you're
worked
all
in
good.
Dallas for 8 years, so
Gotcha. Yeah.
there was.
Never know who actually knows what happened, but yeah, he's been gone for a while. So
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, me. I'm Jason, as my name says up there. I'm copywriter, creative director, have my own little place here in Omaha. Let's see. I am often loyal well beyond what my loyalty is warranted for.
I can go next. Nikhil Rajagopalan, creative copywriter, former medical writer, trying to break into advertising, break into Adland. I think the biggest thing that I like about my personality is like I make friends very quickly. Put me into a party, a crowded room. I don't stand in the corner. I just go right into the front. I just break into conversation circles. I just forcefully insert myself into conversations, but in an organic way. And people, I end up making more friends as I leave than when I come in. And I smile a lot.
Well, I'm Carolyn. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and I'm a copywriter and the other Kingswood and Palmerston with David. Well, my dad once said I was fiercely loyal, and both of those things in equal measure. So I'll just go with that.
Okay, last up, we got Michael.
Hi, Michael. So I work for the stock exchange in Germany. My job is it's kind of broad analyst, so it covers things like technical writing. And I get told that I'm easy to work with.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody.
You missed Thomas.
Oh my gosh, Thomas. Oh my gosh, Thomas. I'm so sorry.
I guess I'm quiet as my I think that I have sort of like optimistic amnesia. So if something goes bad, I can quickly forget about it and be excited again, which I think has served me well in my career.
Hopefully that will serve us well because I just, completely forgot you. So hopefully that amnesia is just like
I already forgot.
Perfect.
It.
Amazing. Cool.
Housekeeping notes?
What?
You're going to do our housekeeping notes?
I'm going to do our housekeeping. So just a couple of upcoming AAF announcements. So AdWords is coming up. It's actually next Thursday, April 6th at DJ's Dugout. And AdWords is super cute because it tests your knowledge of advertising practices, terminology, and trivia. And it is a brutal display of seemingly useless terms and acronyms, but they all mean so much to us, and we would probably be lost without them. So it's a really fun evening, and teams are now forming. So about 6 to 10 people a team. So get your teams in. And then our next Ad Bites professional development panel discussion will be held on April 25th, also at DJ's Dugout. And it's going to be about how public media has been a staple of television and radio for decades. So you get to learn about the unique advertising opportunities from Nebraska's most prominent media outlets. So that's really going to be fun. We're going to have a bunch of different panelists. So those are the things that are coming up. David, would you be so kind to introduce our amazing, incredible guest?
Absolutely. Thomas Kemeny. Say hi, Thomas. Thomas has written one of the single best books that I've ever read in the ad biz, because not only is it chock full of really good insight, it's funny as hell, and it's heavily art directed and designed. I mean, the blue end page and all that, it's awesome. But Thomas is freelancing. He's down in Austin, and he is graciously agreed to come and talk about his book. And the first question, that even though it's answered somewhat in the book, is always like to ask people, why did you write this thing, and who'd you write it for? Take it away.
All right. That's a good question. I'm actually curious what other people have said, because I think for me, it wasn't really that like, oh, I really want to write this book. Like, I sort of felt compelled. Like, I didn't have a choice. Like, it bothered me that I hadn't finished it once I started it. It became just like this thing that I had to get out into the world. It was, I think that was sort of the inspiration for it was when I started in advertising. When I was in school, I read all the advertising books to learn about the industry and everything. And then there's sort of a lot of books that are for the very, very, very early years, very, very like early, like what is an advertising, like that sort of basic level. And then it jumps many, many years to, what do I as a global person running an account need to know? And there wasn't really anything for those hit the ground running first years where I wish I really had this book. So it's answering those things that I wanted to know when I was starting out in the field, and written in a way that when I was starting out in the field, I would have wanted to read as well, which is the other part of it. There are lots of great ad books out there that are very smart. Some of them are completely unapproachable. And then there's some that go the other way that are super fun and light, and they aren't really saying anything. And then there's a ton of just great advertising books that are just great advertising books. I was hopefully I'm falling into that category.
So the interesting thing is when ostensibly it's seems like it's, as by the title, junior, that it's written for somebody trying to get into it. But I've been doing this more years than I want to quote, and I feel like I'm learning things from it. And so, who did you truly intend? Hey, I'm just writing this for air quote junior, or did you really think, hey, this is going to help anybody?
Yeah, I wanted a title that just shot myself in the foot right from the beginning and cut off most of my audience. No, it's actually like I called it junior as a little bit of a fuck you, to be honest. I don't know if I can swear. It's sort of like, it's that title that it's sort of like a derogatory word that's thrown around in offices. It's like, oh, they're just a junior. There's just they're not really to be taken seriously. But for me, I always felt like the people who are juniors in a company, even if they're not technically juniors in the company, are people who just keep that spirit alive of they are still interested. They still think that there's an opportunity in things that others maybe overlook. They're still excited. They still have that sort of naive approach to everything of really wanting to understand it and learn it. And then I think as people get more older and more senior, I think you can take that and become jaded. And I have days where I'm jaded as well. I'm not immune to that. But I think by and large, I still am excited by the problems, and I'm excited to try and solve them with that same energy and enthusiasm that I had when I first started out. So that's really the junior is a very, very there's also like a self-filtering to it as well, where like I think people who are like, well, I am so great aren't gonna pick this book up and read it, which I kind of think is good. Like I knew my audience, I knew the type of person who I wanted to read it. And I think this sort of filters out the people who I think probably wouldn't get much from it.
So is the story in the beginning, all the emails exchanged printed about getting that internship and all, is that true?
I don't think I changed. I think I maybe changed like one or two things in it just for sort of printability. But yeah, it's verbatim otherwise.
That's
That's
absolutely
hysterical. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. I'm just like adjusting to that fact. Okay. So
yeah, it was pretty wild. I should like give it a little bit of context though too, because at the time, so for those who don't know, so it was the letters I wrote to get an internship at Crispin Porter McGusky in Miami. This was when they were the hottest agency in the world at the time. I think pretty like universally accepted at the time that they were the best agency in the world. By the numbers and awards and all that, they were the best agency in the world. By all of the publications, they were the best agency in the world. And I was coming from a school that was not a portfolio school, not a traditional route to getting a job like that. So I really didn't have anything to lose by sort of being bold and sort of really putting my personality out there. Like they didn't know who I was, and worst case scenario, they still wouldn't know who I was. So I didn't really have a lot I think now I would have maybe more to lose if I was writing those, but that was one thing. And I think the other thing was knowing that they were coming from that perspective, and when they were looking at portfolios, that was what they had in their mind. I knew the types of things they were probably seeing from people, and I wanted to do something different. Mine was letters. Everyone else had these slick portfolios with all sorts of whatever, like die cut covers and all the rest of it, and I had letters in an email in Times New Roman font. So I really wanted to to show that I could write and use show that was my skill set.
amazing. I'm blown away. Like I wanted to hire you when I was reading those emails. I was like, there needs to be a shorter route to hire this guy, but it's so funny. That kind of leads into one of my questions. So you wrote, some writing is so liquid smooth that any attention paid to it slips right off. I've heard them called Teflon ads or creative wallpaper. And I was like, that puts words to something that I see in so many different places. And it's true, like the copy is completely forgettable. It went through a million rounds of revision. That all the boards of all the legals and all the PR people are so happy with it. And so that's thank you for writing that, because it put a nice clarity and conciseness to something that I've seen everywhere. Do you have some brands that are kind of your favorites for breaking the rules successfully, like doing a good job of cutting that clutter and having some personality?
I think every category, I think any category that's been doing the same thing the same way for a very long time is sort of poised for that. So lots of brands have done it, and maybe people have forgotten that some of them have done it. Like Nike, when it first started, did that big time. I think Apple, when they came out, they did that big time. Now that is the look that everyone else copies, but that was a super breakthrough at the time. I think Oatly has done a great job of being very different from a sort of packaged good milk product where they don't talk about how they're healthy and all the rest of it. I mean, those are some that's off the top of my head. Yeah, so many. I think it's kind of interesting that there's always a new way to crack things too. And I think once everyone sort of sees a thing and falls into a groove, there's an opportunity to do it the other way, or do it a different way, or to be surprising again. And it's kind of cool that there's seemingly an infinite ways to be surprising with brands and categories. So those are some that just come to the top of my head. But I think, yeah, I also think that sort of tried and true brands have moments where they could be doing that as well. And and have moments where they do that as well. So I don't want to say it's like only it's like cute little niche brands that people know about. I think like big brands can do it as well in really cool ways.
Totally.
So how do you keep fresh like that? I mean, I know you're not as old and bitter as me, but how do you just keep getting at it when it seems like, and maybe it's finding the right clients, but it seems like everybody wants to have a regression to the mean. They just want to do things that look like what everybody else is doing. How do you keep that energy going?
To come up with something new each time, or to push
Yeah,
against
come up with
the...
something new and to approach every like the one of, I guess the advice that I'd heard once from someone says the most important skill you can have as a creative person is resilience, being able to be knocked back down and
Yeah,
come back up, which is great to say,
yeah, it's hard,
but hard to live.
I mean, I think it's what I said at the beginning. Like it's I have a bit of amnesia, like creative amnesia, where I will very quickly forget how horrible the last time went, and I will come back with more ideas and be excited about them again. So I think that's kind of the key for me. And then, you know, I do bitch and moan when something I love and worked on and put a lot of care into, and especially if something's been, you know, crafted to death and then it dies. You know, that's sort of the worst, because you sort of you've nurtured it so long and people have told you to believe in it for so long, and then it falls apart. So you know, it still hurts. I mean, I think somebody asked me this once, and I was like, it still hurts because I still care. So you know, it still hurts when those ideas die. But then I think I just really like the process too. Like, I can't control what they do, but I can control what I do, and I enjoy, for my own well-being, just writing and coming up with weird thoughts and ideas. And it's just a fun way that, I mean, it's kind of what I would do anyway if I didn't have this as a job, I just think of weird things. So I really I think that's kind of a neat, you know, I think that keeps me resilient, where I'm not so focused on the result, and I'm just really enjoying the process of it, as well.
So that leads me to another question. How did you decide, or when did you decide you wanted to be in advertising? How did that come about? What was your path to that?
My path was actually, it was a very short path. I was it was the summer before I was starting college, and originally I wanted to do interactive multimedia, which probably would have led me into tech, which would have made me rich and wealthy and happy. But instead, I decided to read a book called "Hey, We'll Squeeze This," and which, if people haven't read it here, yeah. It's an incredible book, and made me switch majors before I started college. And for me, it was I always had like a bit of a, you know, I have like an artist soul, but I mean, this, you can tell by how I'm talking about like all this, oh, my need to get it out, whatever, all my bullshit. But then I also have like a little bit of a business brain. So like I look for problems, and I don't just like doing creativity for creativity's sake. I look at, you know, creativity is my tool for problem solving. So I always had that like that pragmatic business, how can I make this profitable, how do I reach an audience type of mindset, and this was a nice place where those two worlds collided for me. So that I switched majors and got into advertising. Funny story about Luke Sullivan. When I first finished my book and it was first published, I sent him a copy of it, and I was ready for him to be like, no, fuck you, hack, you ripped me off, go to hell. And it was the exact opposite. He was so kind, and he actually he used it for his class. I went and talked to his class, and it was weird because he said, they're really excited to talk to you. They think it's so cool that I know you. And I was like, they're all morons. You need to fail them all because you're the bigger deal. They should not be impressed meeting me. So that was kind of cool. And now we talk fairly regularly about, you know, just we send emails to each other on things, and it's still insane to me. He quotes me now in his 6th edition of his book. So I went from it being the book that got me into the industry to being quoted in the book, which just blows my mind.
That's the coolest full circle moment ever. Like,
yeah. So then, is there another book coming?
Yeah, I'm I have notes for my next book, but it's this first one took me a long time, and I think my next one's going to take me a long time too. So I don't want to talk about it too much, because then people say, oh, that's great, and I'll already get all the dopamine hits that I need, and I won't write it.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Awesome.
You'll get plenty here today. I have a hard time finding my favorite quote from the book because there are so many. I got a couple marked here. One was referred to what you were just talking about being resilient. And I think students just make ads good. Professionals make ads good, then watch them die for no reason, then do it again as if nothing happened. That is so completely true. You know, you just do that over and over and over and over and over. And that was another quote that I heard in that was Bob Berry, who they asked, how do you come up with these, amazing campaigns that are in, who is it, Fallon? And they're in all these award books, and it's not the first campaign, not the first idea. It wasn't the sixth. And he says, if the client's stupid 12 times, I have to be smart 13 times.
Yeah, that's great.
I love that, because that's what it is. Yeah, it's just over and over and over. And it's hard if you have any kind of, it's odd because you have an ego of some sort to be in this business because you're putting some of yourself out there. But 90% of what you do is going to get smacked down. So would you give anybody advice to like, yeah, this is great. Nicole, you can close your ears. Would you give anybody advice? Yeah. This is the business you want to go into?
Get out while you still can. I think that's the best advice. Yeah, I mean, it's, 90% was that's very gracious. I would say 99.99% of your work is going to die. And I think going into it knowing that that helps out a lot, because you'll know what to expect. So yeah, I don't know what my advice would be. That's the job.
Do you have any?
I wonder. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask if you had any memorable ones that got away that you just have nostalgia about.
I do. It's it was for Goldman Sachs has like a consumer bank called Marcus, and we had this idea of bringing Marcus Goldman back, reincarnated as a limousine that drives around and picks people up and gives them financial advice.
That's adorable. Oh my gosh.
So it's just an 80s stretch limousine.
And what was the
I don't know why they didn't buy it. I don't know.
Did they give you a reason?
Oh, I don't even know if it made it past the internal meeting. It made it past the internal, but I don't know if it made it to higher ups. It was interesting idea.
Your list of reasons in the book why an idea can die, I look at that and I just feel so much better because I'm like, it's not just me. Like, I don't know. I think there's something to be said about the universal truths you can capture in books like these. Like, this is relevant to all of our experiences as copywriters. Like, we're going to come up with stuff and it's going to be great for a number of reasons. And then it'll just die for just the stupidest, dumbest thing. So that is really fun. How do you find like fascinating bits of drama? This is kind of a different segue. How do you find fascinating bits of drama around really mundane, boring products? Like, you were talking about writing dialogue and creating characters and crafting stories for a print ad. And that was something that had just never even entered my mind. So how do you find like fun moments of tension and drama for boring products that aren't very sexy?
I actually start off in a fairly boring way as well. I start off just with truths and just that are true to the category or true of the product. And I don't mean like product feature type of stuff. So if it's like if it's a printer, I'm not like it prints in black and white, like that's a feature, but like a truth is like, some things have to be on paper, or there's something more permanent to something on paper. If your kid's drawing is on on your computer, it's not permanent, even though it technically is permanent. Like these are like kind of weird thoughts that are sort of like, they're just interesting truths. And I'll just take a bunch of those and then I'll use those as kind of that'll like prime the pump of my brain, and I'll start thinking, okay, so what are some lines either directly based off of that or just my brain's going enough so I can just sort of start riffing on lines. And I just write a ton. I just write a ton until my brain just goes into weird, wonderful places. And I don't know where this line came from, but it's kind of true and interesting. And then once I like find that, then I'll rewrite that one line 20 different ways and find the best way of saying it. And be like, oh, can I erase this, delete this? You know, in the book, I talk a lot about this part of it. Like, how do I then take that idea and craft it a million ways? And yeah, I mean, I sort of like, there's all these just like little, there's so much shared history that people have, especially like within one, you know, country or something. Like in the US, there's so much shared history that you can pull from, and shared culture that you can pull from, and references and little snippets of phrases that everyone understands, like where it's supposed to go, that you can then change. Like there's just so much story that you can pull from, and then just connecting that into it, you know, whatever your narrative is sort of a nice shortcut, and yeah, builds a bigger world than just here's the product feature in 4 words with a word play.
I love that so much. That is so
When
cool.
you're writing idea after idea after idea, are you writing literally? Do you work with pencil and paper, or do you work on the keyboard?
So I think it's kind of like driving a car, where like when you first learn it, you really have to, okay, now I'm putting it into gear and whatever, and all the rest of it, and checking the mirrors, and at some point it becomes automatic. You just kind of do it intuitively. I think I've been doing it now so long that I'm still writing them out, but I'm just doing it in my brain. At this point, I don't need to put them on paper, but I'm still, you know, writing them out. I'll jump to computer sometimes, so I'll write it onto computer. If I'm really, really stuck, I will go back to pen and paper.
Excellent.
Back to basics. Bounce the ball, look at the hoop.
So since the book is ostensibly for entry-level people, you wouldn't have this problem putting your portfolio together today. But if somebody's just starting out, what do you recommend when you put a portfolio? Because you don't have a bunch of produced work. You might not have an art director partner. How do you best present the work? You know, you said you wrote these emails and wrote the letters.
Yeah.
What, you know, clearly that worked for you.
I'll reverse the process here. So the end result is somebody hiring you, and the person hiring you is a recruiter. The recruiter's job is to hire somebody for the job. And the way that they do it is, you know, they have a reason that they brought you in, and they introduce you to the people who are, you know, creative directors or whatever, or they make their own decision depending on how the agency is structured. So really, like, the portfolio is a means of doing that. The portfolio isn't the end result. So I think it's sort of reversing that process and being like, what can I do that gives this person a reason to bring me in to meet with these people who do the hiring. Portfolio is the traditional way of doing that, and because they know that if you send them a portfolio, they will look at the portfolio. Along with that, they also are looking at thousands of portfolios, hundreds, thousands, whatever. I don't know what the latest is, but back when they used to be printed objects at Christmas and McGusky, they had an entire wall bookshelf. And I asked the recruiter, I was like, oh, are these the, you know, are all the people whose portfolios have been sent to you? And they're like, no, these are just the ones worth keeping. And that was a bookshelf. So they're busy, and they've seen a lot of good work, and you have to do something that's different. And even that can be, okay, my work is so breakthrough and awesome that it's different, or how I'm presenting it is different, or how I'm presenting myself is different, or how you know, if you think of your portfolio also as a piece of communication, how can you present it in a way that's, and I don't mean like, what's a gimmick that you can do with your portfolio? It's not that. It's just, how can you just shave a little bit here, or tweak it there, or just make it a little bit, like a little subtle nudge here. Like early on when I had a portfolio, I'd put just like little things, you know, just in my portfolios, like little side notes almost, or like even in my book, like I have little blue squiggles that are like, it just looks like somebody was doodling in your book. And it's just those little things that people are like, oh, I don't know why, but people's brains are just like, that's cool and interesting and different, and it feels honest for some reason. So I think it's just those little things that help out a lot.
I think for me, it's like the difference between wallpaper portfolio, like it just slides right off, or those little doodles, like people can latch onto that and find the human in that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, what's the thing that the recruiter can point to and say, this is why I brought this person in? And then someone else can say, oh, okay, I get why you brought them in. That's it. That's all they need. What is that one thing?
Like,
And then yeah, your portfolio has to be stellar if you're going for a great agency as well. But at least they'll have looked at it. Someone will have looked at it.
so so much of what we end up having to do today is digital. I absolutely love what you said about digital ads in here. It says digital ads are the worst. You're in somebody else's personal space. You're in a bathroom break. You're an open sore in their life, and you're cheap and dirty. Like, wow. So, and that's so true. Yet it's 98% of what I do, and what I'm sure most everybody else here does. So,
Yeah.
just any thoughts on that? Is non-digital work ever coming back?
I think it is coming back. I've seen it come back. But I think even with that, it's not that I don't think digital has a place or is not good advertising. I just think that awareness isn't there, that self-awareness. Whereas I think in television, that self-awareness was there of, okay, we're an interruption of someone's show. Like, I think they're like, even the kind of worst advertising was like, all right, well, we kind of need to like give them a little something, you know? Whereas I think digital is like, we don't need to give them anything. We're gonna, you know, we've targeted them. It's cool. They'll have to buy it because we've targeted them. And that's just not true. And people just, you know, that's not been the realistic response. So I think, yeah, so I think it's that. And then, sorry, to your earlier point, I think non-traditional advertising has had, I don't know if it's ever went away, but is like becoming a pretty regular thing that's briefed as regularly as something digital. Out of home, I've seen come back. Like, out of home advertising is seemingly come back quite strong. Print, maybe not so much. You know, people aren't picking up magazines necessarily, but even some formats of print are still valid. Yeah, and I also think it's like they've gone back to, you know, it is the New York Times and the Wired.coms and like the sort of more established ones that people are still gunning for, versus just broad, you know, scattershot across whatever website. I think people are being a little bit more thoughtful of what sites they're on now as well.
One of the media or whatever that I feel like is really right to come back is direct mail. Just because when's the last time you actually got a good piece of mail? And when you do, it's like, oh, wow, this is amazing. But
I got a check. That was great.
That's the best mail of all. I talked to an agency owner once who said his most effective prospecting piece was a personally addressed envelope, you know, letter with a first-class stamp. He says, I got more response rate out of that than anything else I did. Because you don't get
true. Yeah.
So David and I can ask Thomas questions all day long, but if anybody else wants to ask a question, go ahead and take yourself off mute, or you can put them in the chat. I don't want to monopolize.
I was trying to help out, so I asked ChatGPT, but it was like really questions, so apologies. I was thinking though, as a freelancer and talking about things like digital ads that you go, should they even be doing this? How do you go? Do you ever try to talk them out of whatever tactic they're trying to execute, or do you just do one of those take the money, leave the money on the table and do what you want kind of jobs?
So somewhere in between. I think you know, I've told people when they've been like, oh, we like you, we want to hire you full time. Like, I don't know if you'd like me full time. Like, I think I would dig my heels in a little bit more, because then it's more about me and my growth within the company versus them and solving whatever problems in front of them at the moment. But I will always, the first time, try and solve a problem the absolute best way that I can. If I get some feedback that I disagree with, I will state how I feel about it clearly and why I feel that way. They say, yeah, but we want you to do it anyway. I say, great, I'm excited, can't wait to do it. So, you know, I and that, you know, within reason, if I think something's like unethical, then I'm just like, no. But yeah, at that point, I'm there to solve their problem and make their headaches go away. So my client has changed. They're my client now instead of whatever client I'm working on. But that's always my approach is always to try and do it the best way I can, over deliver if I can, and then yeah, keep my standard up. Yeah, I guess the other thing is like, I don't want to waste my time. So if I'm doing something, like I want to do a good job on it, just as like a personal thing. But yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question. So that, but then yeah, if they need me to do something, I'm happy to do what they need me to do.
Awesome.
So where do you go for inspiration? What do? You just.
I am not a purist in any form. I will read absolutely anything. Yeah, I will read any book. It's actually one of the cool things about being an author now is a bunch of other ad authors, when they come out with books, send me their books. And I love reading other people's ad books. I'll read Reddit is tons of great, like the way people write on Reddit is amazing on some of those different subreddits. Twitter, there's some pockets where people are just the way that they craft things and phrase things in these really short snippets, just so clean and nice, and sort of there's a sort of like found art quality to it where they've done it a really cool way, not because they are trying to do that, but because that's just how it came out, or that I think that's sort of very cool. And then yeah, I'll read like good books as well when I get a chance, or whatever popular fiction if something's if everyone's recommending something. Yeah, and I also think that the last few years we've been really lucky with just great writing and television. There's just been, I think, the sort of blank checks that the streaming companies had basically given out led to just tons of amazing writing that's pretty impressive, and just trying to dissect a line or a sentence or how somebody phrased something is just, yeah, really amazing. So yeah, I will read anything, or tube of toothpaste that has something funny written on it. Justin's peanut butter is one of the best copy on any packaging ever.
Mike dropped a great question in the chat. Speaking of other ad books, do you have any other personal favorites besides the classic Hey Whipple?
Hey Whipple is the big one. I've enjoyed Cameron Day's books because he actually he had me write the foreword for a second one. That was kind of I've enjoyed writing his. He's just, I think he's pretty like unguarded about what he feels and things that he's been through, which has been really interesting to read. Nancy Bonk and Janet Keston wrote a book called Darling, You Can't Do Both, which is fucking great. Just like
they were the last.
It fucked me up. It fucked me up. Yeah. Oh my God, it's such a good book.
So good.
I was reading it, and I was like, oh shit, it's so good.
They covered so many different, like the gamut. Like I feel like kind of like with Junior, you could almost undersell it and be like, oh, this book is only for women or whatever, but it's such a good book. Love that book.
It's such a good book. Yeah. Man. Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of good ones.
Well, see, we're looking for, the next author. So that's why it's always good to have one.
Yeah.
Good recommendations.
What's the book that no one's written yet on the advertising industry? You see your book, but where's the next gap?
Ooh.
How to get clients to buy ideas. That's my personal.
There's one that I'm working on, which is a gap that I've seen.
I wondered if I'd be asking you to let us peek in your underwear drawer, so it's okay if you don't answer.
Yeah, I'll hold on that, but it will be out at some, I don't know, maybe some point in my life, maybe it'll come out.
So as a freelancer, do you find it hard to like bounce ideas off of people? Like how do you test whether an idea is good or just something that you think is nice in the moment?
I have a art director partner who I've worked with for many years at this point, and we just riff off of each other. I think also like we both approach the problem of like wanting to know when we've solved it, so we can have really rational conversations about it. So it's at that point, it's, oh, does this creative answer solve the problem at hand? And then we don't really question too much, like, is it fun or cool enough or anything like that? And then we'll go back later and be like, oh, which of these made us laugh? Which of these are we excited about? And then there's always some layer of somebody who's going to have a say in it. And once, if we present a bunch of stuff that we know answers the problem and that we think is cool, then we kind of don't care which one they go with.
So,
Answer.
do you prefer the freelance life over the agency life?
I do, because I don't think I would have gotten my book done or out into the world if I was full time. And yeah, I actually I like thinking of myself as a business in a way, because then the way that I think I'm a lot kinder to myself when I'm seeing myself as a product than as an employee. I would draw harder boundaries, and yeah, and it suits my lifestyle. I also don't think it's for everyone. There's, it's nerve-wracking at times. If you have a down week, it feels like the world's ending, and you'll never work again, and all the rest of it. And you really do have to be proactive and connecting with people, and doing all those sorts of things. So it's definitely not for everyone. And then I think a lot of people also find that their careers are sort of put on hold when they go freelance. So you don't progress anymore from that point. You're like, okay, that was how good I am. And then 5 years later, they're like, oh, I haven't improved in 5 years. Now I don't have a place in the market anymore. So I think you really have to be self-motivated to keep advancing yourself as well.
Jason, sound like anybody you know, Jason? No.
Jason's freelance.
Me, yeah.
Rude.
Well, I am. Like I said, I'm an asshole.
So David.
We figured that out already. We've ascertained that.
Been freelance for a long time.
Right. So,
So you had this great thing about your job as a junior is proving your creative director right in the book. And I just wanted to say that has helped me so much in my own personal job. Just because you're right, the creative director has that vision and is able to draw on years of experience that I don't have yet. And it's just really nice to have that mindset of going into it oh yeah, this is going to make it better. And so yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that. And then follow up with a yes, but yes, but how do I address feedback when I really tried and it really isn't working? Yes, but how do I tell my creative director that I think they're wrong?
I like to show my work. So we had one time where a creative director gave some feedback and we weren't sure of it, but we like I wrote in the book, it's well, let's try it. And I think a lot of times people say no because and I'm not saying this about you, but sometimes people are lazy and they just don't want to try it because it takes time, and all the rest of it. So sometimes the solution can be to just try it and do, okay, here's the way you said it, here's exactly how you said it and why it doesn't work. Here's a way that's slightly different of that and why that still doesn't work. Here's another variation why that doesn't work. And then here's a version that I think is actually right. And here's the original. And then if you just present it like that, then it's really easy to have that conversation because it becomes really obvious which one is better. But sometimes they're still so in love with their own thinking that they're just going to go with the one that's terrible. So that's the danger of it. But they would probably make you do that eventually anyway. Or you can just be stubborn and never show them that version and pretend that you never heard them say that and keep showing them the same version over and over. And I know it sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not, because I know people who've had very successful careers doing that, and just pretending they didn't hear the feedback that everyone clearly heard them say.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
So as we talk about creative directors, so you came up as a copywriter. Did you ever aspire to be the creative director, or is that why you're off being freelance, because you like to be more doing the work rather than sitting around telling people no?
I mean, I basically, the book's called Junior, so everyone thinks that I'm perpetually a junior, which maybe will give me a long, successful career. Everyone will always think I'm just starting out. But I've basically been a creative director for a while now, as far as what I actually do. And even when I was full-time, although Mother was a very sort of flat organization, so you just had a lot of like autonomy over projects. So I would, after I left there and I'd go freelance at places and they're like, oh, you're a group creative director. I'm like, cool, whatever. And I would still be presenting work up to somebody and they would be presenting it up to somebody like, oh, this is weird because as a copywriter, I had more autonomy than I do now as a group creative director. So, you know, the title's whatever these days. I just, I think I maybe said this once, some of it sort of like, I care about what the work is, what the money is, and the rest is bullshit.
Well said. Well said.
I was talking to David the other day and we were sort of discussing what makes a good creative director. And I think one of the ingredients, I like, you know, you have to have good sense of taste. And I think the key ingredient for taste is probably having an insanely good memory. Do you have a good memory? And what other ingredients do you think go into having that sense of taste that allows you to make those creative decisions quickly and effectively?
I think I have a lot of assorted knowledge, I will say, versus a good memory. I know like how a lot of random things work and why they work. And I think that's sort of how I can apply different types of thinking onto problems. And that helps me sort of say, this is how these things will live together. It'll be kind of like this thing here, or, oh, this organization did this thing that was interesting. Maybe if we sort of approach something this way, or, oh, this is approaching the problem the same way this other person approached this problem 10 years ago, or you know, oh, what if we approach the problem, not like how do we get to the same answer, but what if we approach the problem the same way they approach the problem? And I think that's sort of been helpful. My partner actually has a much better like memory than me, because I'll come out of meetings, I'll be like, I kind of think I remember what they said. So I write things down, but my partner always remembers them. So that's super helpful.
Yeah, I think, when I said memory, I definitely meant what you referred to. So I read I listened to the Paul Simon audio biography because it's only available as an audio book. And he talked about, he didn't talk about it, I made the connection that there's this sense of taste that comes around. He can think about music he listened to when he was 10 and just think, oh, I liked that bit of rhythm, or I like that thing. And I think from what you're saying, you do have it.
Yeah.
I'm right. It'll all make sense again.
That's really cool. I've not thought about that. That's very true. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think everything's sort of, you know, the bigger web of connected things are, the sort of the more you can pull from, for sure. And every new thing connects to other things, and then there's a new web there created. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's cool. That's an interesting way of thinking about it.
I think that's what I see as some of the, you know, they sound like the old man kids nowadays, but some of the younger people in an agency that I work with is a lot of people who haven't been in the business, and they don't have that collective background of what's good. They sit in their little silo, they sit at their desk, and they never, to your point, go out and read, go out and watch the world, go out and observe people and just eavesdrop on them. And I feel like that somehow, I don't know, I feel like that's an undervalued skill. To me, it's just what you do, but a lot of these people don't do it. And do you see that? And maybe you don't in the world that you work in, but I see a lot of that where they're just totally oblivious to the great work that's going on around us.
You know what? I think I did have that. I was sitting with in an agency with some younger people, and we were coming up with some idea, and there was like some script or whatever, and it said something about like, you know, all these people are like not having true connections. They're like sitting around with their friends and looking at their phones. And this one creative was like, I don't get that. And someone's like, oh, well, it's like, you know, you're like multitasking, and then it's sort of like you're not fully there. And the guy was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's just, we are all able to multitask. Like, we grew up multitasking. Like, being on my phone and talking to my friends is not an interruption. And it was just like this, like, duh, I mean, obviously kind of moment, but it was like, oh yeah, we're distracted because this is a new thing to us that's like messing with our brains. But if you grew up with this, it's not, it's just, yeah, that's just like, I'm wearing a shirt and I'm talking to you, you know, it's not like a thing that disrupts you, you know? So it's, I thought that was so interesting, that sort of made me feel like maybe I was, yeah, like, yes, I'm pulling from a rich world of a bunch of things, but they're also pulling from a rich world of a bunch of things that are different than mine. And you know, I early internet days watched like random weird YouTube videos, and that influenced my, you know, my taste level a lot. In the same way that they're probably looking at some weird TikTok thing that I don't know about, that none of us probably know about, or I don't know, some of the younger folks might. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question. It was just babbling. One or the other.
It's spot on. To me, it says something better about what I see as the dreaded phrase when you see jobs like, oh, we're digital natives. Like, the hell does that mean? That's code for I want somebody who's under 30 who like don't have to pay very much. But
Also true.
also true. So speaking of digital natives and things like that, are there any regular go-to like podcasts that you listen to or things like that? Particularly, and I spend a lot of time in the industry, so I'm probably too sheltered. But what do you listen to?
Yeah, all the industry ones. Partially just because since I've been doing some podcasts and things like this, I wanted to know how people talk about themselves and their work. And then that was just deep rabbit holes. And then I started listening to it while going on runs. And now I've listened to like It's Only Fucking Advertising and Talking to Ourselves and Breaking and Entering Advertising and a bunch of others. I just listened to all of them. But then I started listening to some other ones like Fly on the Wall, which is David Spade and Dana Carvey talking to a bunch of celebrities and other like random people, and they talk to a lot of SNL writers and people who are cast members, and they talk about, like, they actually talk a lot about creativity, and they're not trying to talk about creativity, but just sort of like is this underpinning of everything they talk about, and being in writers' rooms and things like that. And that's really cool to listen to, because there's some parallels there of how they're sort of the dreaded meetings and like the things that they have to deal with, and it's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. And I listened to a random Hungarian. I speak Hungarian. I was born in Hungary, so I'll listen to this Hungarian podcast. It's basically like two psychologists talking to each other about random topics, and I keep wishing they had it in English because it's really interesting, the things they talk about, but it's not translated. So it's completely not helpful for everyone. But
my favorite bakery in Cleveland was the Magyar bakery. They always speak the Magyar there. It's like, what are they saying? They're talking about me. I have no idea what they're saying.
Always.
Well, this is awesome. We're in the last few minutes, so if anybody has a question, Jason's been silent even though I've been harassing him. You know Jason, by the way, Thomas?
I'm just trying not to go on a rant. It's not my
rant.
day.
Let's rant. Let's do it. Go.
Jason is the
Nothing but rant.
Beard. Come on.
Well, you just alluded to it with the Utes. I've been working by myself for, well, way too long at this point, so I don't know what's going on out in the agency world as much anymore. Actually on the floor in the creative department and whatnot. But just being on Twitter, you get the sense that there's not. I'm sure there's young people coming up out there who love advertising and love doing great work. But I also get a sense there's this large contingent that they're not getting into advertising to make really great work. To me, great work is creative and effective. That's the point. Creativity makes it more effective. It's not, as you said, being creative for the sake of creative. I was a marketing major and I had a knack for writing, so here I went. But people just want to do. They want to make stuff, but they don't want to create stuff. They don't want to have those weird connections that then makes a weird connection with their audience. And then something organic evolves out of that. And it's, juicy. It's just, let's crank this thing out. And hey, it's on TikTok. Well, great. Any jackass can be on TikTok. It doesn't mean anybody watched it. I mean, and go talk about that.
You're extra cranky today, Jason.
I'm cranky for other reasons involving other people in bad days they've been having today. So it put me in a cranky mood.
Yeah, no, there's something, it's sort of like when, anytime there's a new thingy that comes out, everyone wants the thingy, and the people who are in control of the thingy say, yeah, just give us all your money and we'll just do the thing we do and everything will be fine. And that's what happened. So I think, the first sort of, within my time, the sort of first instance of that was viral videos. Everyone wanted to make a viral video, and they were like, yeah, no, it doesn't matter. You'll have done the video, so you don't have to put your logo in it. We don't have to put it doesn't have to be about your product at all. And we don't even have to have it just because, just because it's going to get 1 million views, like, don't worry about any of that stuff. And brands were like, yeah, cool. That sounds good. That's what the natives are, the digital natives are telling us to do. And I think companies after a while were like, hey, what's weird is our product isn't showing up in these, and you've got 10 million views, but nobody knows that we had anything to do with it. Like, yeah, no, it's cool. And then eventually companies were like, not cool, put a big fucking logo in the first 5 seconds. And that's what happened. And now that it is only 6 seconds, and 5 of those seconds are the logo, and that's gone the extreme other way. And then it was like, well, no, social media, Instagram, influencers. Yeah, don't tell the influencer what to do. The influencer, just trust the influencer. They're gonna do your thing. Don't worry if your product's not in it. It's cool. It's cool because you're gonna be cool. So you're gonna get, man, look how many likes you got. You got like 10 million. Look at all these comments you got. It doesn't matter if people don't know it was your product. And then brands are like, fuck you. You're putting a logo. You're gonna smile and hold our product in front of everybody, and there's gonna be a thing that says hashtag ad, and it's gonna have our website on it. Well, so I think it's sort of like. And Facebook's going to start selling those as units. Like, that's sort of what happened. And the same thing's going to happen on, TikTok, where, oh yeah, people are genuinely creating dance crazes. No, it's going to be the Mountain Dew dance craze, by what it already is, with a big fucking logo, and maybe there'll be a dance move at the end of it. So it's just how it happens. So they will get crushed as well, Jason. Do not worry.
Well,
they don't know
other
yet.
people, I guess
the good part is, they're going to get crushed. They don't know they're going to get crushed.
One of my concerns is that there's not a generation coming up of people who know how to actually make good work. Like the numbers of those people, it's always been, to me, a small percentage. Most advertising through history has been crap. But there's been a contingent of people who know how to do it very well. And to me, that percentage is getting smaller and smaller, and soon you won't have the people who know how to combine concepting and salesmanship and craft of actually making something, and they're not around to teach the people coming up because, well, you cracked 40 and now you need to go away because you're too old and too expensive and out of touch.
I think people are still making cool things. I think the
no, they are. I'm just
the
saying
media
it's
for it
going to
is
get
hard.
It's
Yeah,
harder.
Yeah.
Like, it was always a small percentage, and now it's shrinking, and that worries me for
It's partly because
the kids. When I'm old, I want a really good catheter commercial to be targeted at me.
We all do.
there's always going to be clutter. Like, you're always going to have ads that shouldn't be there, and they're a waste of space. But I feel like there's fun brands. They're still doing fun things. Like, you just got to look in other places.
I'm not saying there's no good work. I'm saying it's shrinking.
It is. I think it. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
No, I'm interested. Go.
I was just going to say, I think for very young people coming through too, like even people my kids' age. I mean, my oldest is 11, turning 12, and she's already a creator. And I think that they just see that the media is free, and why is it that we can't just make things and then find the audience? And they're just not maybe used to this idea of going, we have an audience, we have a commodity, we want to sell it. Like, they're looking at it backwards, maybe, just because it's so easy to make things. But I don't think that they're right. I don't think that, that's the best or most efficient way for a business to do it. But I think there's this relationship between the media being free and the creative being cheap that maybe generates this idea of having to really focus on whether something's good. You just sort of make lots and lots and lots of things, and something will go viral or something will work. But anyway, that's my reason.
Yeah, I do still think that even within, I think people still appreciate and know when something took time to do right. And if you look at even some of the popular things are like the people who make the, you know, the Rube Goldberg machines of various things are always get lots of views, and that's because it took a lot of time. Somebody's like, wow, that took a tremendous amount of effort. So I think people still sense and appreciate when something has like a craft and time behind it. But yes, most people are just making a ton of shit, and but they kind of always were. It just wasn't like publicly
Yeah.
shared. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
My notebooks are full of crap ideas. I just don't put them out in the world.
Yeah. I'm so
That's the
glad they're like
difference.
a whole drive, like terabyte drives full of songs. I'm glad I never put anywhere because that would be really embarrassing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've overrun our hour, but if you've got any other questions, let's sneak it in before we let Thomas go away and have his evening. Anything else? Going what?
Do we want to take a quick picture of the book? If you have your book, if you don't have your book, you can just smile. If you don't want to smile, you can just look at the screen.
I'll just point.
Cheese.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Hopefully, I'm pointing at books in the.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll sell some more of your books. This is we had 39 people registered. I don't know where they all went, but
It was 70 some degrees. Unfortunately, the day
but
just
not
got
here.
too
We had a
nice.
bunch
and-
of Andrew Bolton's students.
Yeah.
You know Andrew Bolton from.
Uh,
So he
Yeah.
had like 3 or 4 students registered. None of them showed up, bastards.
If they're in the UK though,
That's
aren't
me.
they all asleep?
Well,
Yeah, they're
I
sleeping.
guess they're not dedicated. Look at Michael.
Well,
Look at Michael.
in case
There's-
in case anyone wants to know, if this is Nikhil here. My internet was like super unstable, so I'm still here in spirit, listening in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Thomas, this has been so great. Like, I loved your book. I love you in person. You're hysterical and funny and refreshing, and just this book is what young creatives need, and I'm going to keep using it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for the invite. It was great being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye bye.